There are moments we all find ourselves waking not to life, but to noise. Eyes open to see the world, but the mind doesn't follow. Some days, even before the sun touches the skin, our hearts are already heavy with something we can't name. A weight, a fog, a quiet current of not quite right. And here's the strange thing. We do everything we're taught to do. We check the boxes, we build careers, we surround ourselves with people, we strive, learn, grow, achieve, and yet the ache inside doesn't quiet. This ache is not a sign of weakness. It is not a diagnosis, and it is not asking to be fixed. It is something far more sacred. It is a whisper from within, asking not for answers, but for listening. There is a hunger in us, a deep, honest yearning, not for pleasure, not even for success, but for meaning, for belonging, for peace that doesn't depend on outcomes. Modern life has taught us how to accomplish, how to perform, how to present ourselves to the world, but it has not taught us how to dwell in ourselves, how to feel, to observe, to rest in total clarity and presence. We have turned outward so much that we have forgotten the way back in. And when the outside no longer satisfies, we begin to ask, is there something wrong with the world? Or have I forgotten how to be fully alive? In this moment, not in some distant future, not in a retreat far away, but right here, in your listening, a different path quietly reveals itself. A middle way, not running toward or away, not blaming or glorifying, not control, not surrender, only seeing, deeply, softly, without grasping. This podcast is not about religion. No faith is required, and no step is forced. It is simply a conversation with the place in you that already knows, even if it's forgotten, that the freedom from suffering was never outside of you to begin with. In ancient India, 2,500 years ago, a man saw the same ache in kings and beggars alike. And through seeing fully into that ache, he understood something simple. Suffering is not caused by life. It is caused by misseeing life. He did not escape pain. He awoke to its nature, and in doing so, he showed the world a possibility that we too can awaken. Not into perfection, but into truth. This is the spirit of our journey together. Over the next 10 segments, we will explore what suffering truly is and isn't, why modern attempts to cure emotions often fall short, how the ego gives birth to confusion, why most people chase healing instead of understanding, how simply watching the mind can unravel decades of inner conflict, and ultimately how a quiet, awake mind, a non-reactive mind, touches peace no matter what happens in life. This teaching is not new, but the way we hear it today might be. You don't need to change who you are. You don't need to force belief. You only need to watch, to meet yourself again, slowly, gently, honestly, to make space not for advice, but for direct experience, and to hold your own suffering not like a mistake, but like a child needing comfort. This isn't a formula, it's a reflection. This path offers nothing to attain, but everything to remember. And so as we begin, I invite you to pause, not in fear, but in kindness. Breathe not to calm yourself, but to meet yourself. Let's not hurry through this. Wisdom unfolds not when we chase answers, but when we understand what questions we've been too scared to ask. This, right now, is the beginning. A beginning not of change, but of clarity, not of escaping life, but of softly returning to it. We live in a time of unprecedented progress, and yet inner peace has never been more elusive. We have decoded the genome, built machines that think faster than us, cured diseases that once crippled civilizations. Across the globe, information flies at the speed of thought, and possessions are delivered at the tap of a finger. We have entire worlds resting in the palm of our hands, but when we sit alone in silence, that same hand suddenly feels empty. We are surrounded by comforts, and yet the soul is restless. Surrounded by people, and yet many quietly carry the weight of disconnection. Therapists are fully booked, self-help books top every chart, mindfulness apps buzz to remind us to breathe, and still the ache continues. This is not a testament to failure. It is a consequence of forgetting what truly matters. We were taught to conquer the world, but not to be at peace in ourselves. We learned to perform, but not to listen. We became proficient in shaping our external lives, but amateurs in meeting our internal storms. Slowly, silence became uncomfortable. Stillness became foreign. Uncertainty became unbearable. So many chase success, not from desire, but to escape a feeling of not being enough. Others pursue love not from fullness, but from a desperate hope that someone else will make the emptiness go away. And here, hidden in the success story of civilization, lies the paradox. We are more equipped than ever before to live well, and yet in many ways, we are forgetting how to live at all. Because until the mind is understood, no external pursuit will bring the ease we long for. True suffering does not begin in circumstances. It begins in the unquestioned narratives we carry. I am not enough. I must control everything. If I fail, I have no value. If they leave me, it means I'm unworthy. These thoughts, repeated thousands of times in the chambers of our own minds, sculpt the emotional world we wake up into. We call it depression. We call it anxiety. But at the root, very often, it is not madness, it is misperception, not failure, but forgetting. And what have we forgotten? Only this, that peace does not come from mastering life, but from meeting life with clarity. We do not suffer because life is cruel, but because we have never been taught how to meet its changing nature without fear, and so we were trained to control, to chase what we like, to resist what we don't, to avoid pain at all costs. But this avoidance, too, becomes suffering. The world is not the problem, it is the mirror. And the longer we try to renovate the mirror, instead of studying what's being reflected, the more confused we become. This is where modern psychology begins to touch its edge, and where timeless wisdom begins to whisper something deeper. That the way out of suffering happens not in managing the external, but in understanding what we internally believe, pursue, and protect, often without realizing it. And so, a quiet question arises, one that will echo through everything that follows. Not what am I feeling, or how can I get better? But this, who is it that is suffering? Until that is seen, no amount of achievement, medicine, or affirmation can set us free. The next step is not forward, it is inward. We continue our journey into the root of suffering, not to escape emotion, but to understand its true source. This podcast does not aim to fix you, but to help you clearly see what causes inner torment, and in that seeing, to begin awakening to a deeper freedom. Today we arrive at a crucial unraveling. In the modern world, there's a common idea. If we can just label a problem, we will have power over it. If we identify the trauma, if we diagnose the disorder, if we track the symptom, then healing must come. But has it? We live in what may be the most self-aware generation in history. We've named everything: burnout, inner child wounds, overthinking, abandonment trauma, high-functioning anxiety. We measure brain chemicals, cross-reference patterns, scan the nervous system, and still we ache. Modern psychology, with all its insights and sincerity, often remains on the surface of the sea. It teaches us how to swim, but not how to question the ocean itself. It offers explanations, but not necessarily liberation. You may know you have anxiety, but do you know the structure of the mind that creates it? You may be working weekly on your emotions, but have you ever looked at what the self is that feels those emotions? Labeling pain is not the same as seeing through it. Just as knowing the name of a storm doesn't stop your house from shaking, naming your wounds may not calm the trembling inside you. And so many people, so many compassionate, intelligent, and introspective people, become exhausted in the process. They try every tool: therapy, self-help, journaling, affirmations, somatic work. But something always feels just out of reach. Here's the truth. Psychological healing has become another goal to chase, a more subtle form of achievement. And the core illusion remains untouched: the belief that the self must be improved, fixed, managed. But what if the self is the misperception to begin with? Imagine this. You're inside a burning house, and instead of walking out, you stay inside decorating the walls, painting affirmations, installing air fresheners, hanging art to cope, all while the fire keeps burning. This is what most self-development looks like today: managing the discomfort instead of examining what holds the fire in place. This is not to dismiss therapy or neuroscience. There is beauty and intelligence and genuine care in those fields. But the Buddha's invitation is different. He does not stop at understanding emotions. He goes deeper, to understanding the fabrication of emotion, the creator of suffering, the illusion of self that reacts in pain and calls it me. A while ago, someone asked, "How do I overcome low self-worth?" And the answer given was, "Who do you think you are that can be worth something? Is that identity even solid, or is it just a passing thought repeating itself?" These questions don't offer comfort, but they offer contact. Contact with the reality beneath emotional management. Contact with the truth that perhaps we are not who we imagine. And perhaps our suffering is tied not to life itself, but to the measurement running silently in our minds. That measurement is always comparing, always checking: am I good enough, popular enough, healed enough, spiritual enough? This constant internal scoreboard never rests, and the distress it causes is misread, not as the voice of ego, but as the voice of reality. So people try to heal the pain of not being enough, instead of questioning the root assumption: what exactly is this me that's trying to be enough in the first place? This is where psychology meets its horizon, and where Dharma begins. When we cease managing the storm and begin witnessing its clouds. When healing stops being another project and becomes awareness itself. The Buddha's teaching was never meant to massage the ego. It was meant to reveal its unreality. He did not say, "Believe in me and you'll be saved." He said, "Look at your own mind. See clearly what it clings to. See clearly how it fears." And in that clarity, freedom arises. Modern life moves fast. It likes short-term wins and measurable progress. But the Dharma is patient. It is not in a hurry to make you feel better. It wants to show you the structure, the deep architecture of craving, resistance, and unconscious identity. Because only when that structure is seen can it slowly begin to dissolve. You are not asked to reject therapy or deny medicine. You are invited to go deeper, beneath the names, before the labels, where the storm begins, not because life is wrong, but because we have not seen who it is that suffers. So once again, the question returns: who is suffering? And is that who solid? Or is it a passing shadow on the walls of consciousness? Let's sit with that. The ego, the illusion that suffers. As we continue exploring the roots of inner suffering, we are not trying to escape pain, but to see deeply who is experiencing it. This podcast is not here to give you a new self-image, but to soften the false image that has already caused so much suffering. In the past 2 parts, we explored how modern life and psychology often miss the real root, the inner mechanisms that fabricate suffering and the assumptions we never question. Today, we arrive at one of the most involved and tender illusions the mind creates, that there is a solid me at the center of it all. And it is this me, this fragile, constructed sense of identity, that trembles when things go wrong and becomes addicted when things feel right. From the moment we develop language, almost everything in society trains us to build, add to, and defend a sense of self. We collect names, opinions, experiences, preferences. We adopt roles, titles, beliefs, and personal histories. These layer upon each other until we begin to believe they represent something solid. Me, myself, and I. But here's a quiet truth. The ego is not a thing. It is a process, a mental activity. It is constantly updating its story, continuously narrating who you are supposed to be, measuring, defending, fearing. And if you look carefully enough, you may find that this me never quite rests. One day it wants to be admired. The next it wants to disappear. It is proud then ashamed, loving then fearful, confident then doubtful. It changes shape faster than your breath. Still, we take this shifting ground to be our foundation. We say, they insulted me, now I am hurt. They left me, so I must be unworthy. I failed, therefore I am a failure. But if we look with radical honesty, where is this I that has been insulted, abandoned, or condemned? Can you find it? Is it your body? That changes. Your thoughts, they come and go. Your memories, they shift with time. Your job, your family role, your emotions. The Buddha called this anatta, not self. Not meaning you don't exist in any way, but that what you take to be you is not the unchanging identity you assume it is. It is a mirage made from 5 skandhas, 5 ever-changing aggregates. Body, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. None of these are stable, and none of them say I by themselves. But when clung to and combined, they give an illusion of someone behind it all, a central narrator, a self. And thus, suffering is born. You see, and emotions don't hurt because they're negative. They hurt because we think they're happening to me. It's not just sadness, it's I am sad. Not just fear, but I might not be okay. Not just change, but I'm losing control. But without the belief in this fixed I, emotion becomes experience, not identity. There is pain, but not always someone being destroyed by pain. There is fear, but not necessarily someone who is unsafe. Many people try to heal by building a better self. They try to convince themselves, I am enough, I am special, I am powerful. But from the view of awakening, this is still ego, slightly dressed up in prettier words. It still clings, it still defends, it still fluctuates. The deeper invitation is not to upgrade your ego, but to gently examine if there even is someone there to upgrade. This is not meant to be disorienting. It is meant to liberate, because once the I is seen as a process, not a prison, you become free to flow with life. You become so much more than identity. You become awareness itself. This does not make you passive. You can still love, act, create, respond. But without the burden of always protecting the idea of me, that is freedom. A freedom not provided by success, not given by praise, but born from seeing through the mask that was never truly you. So again, we pause to reflect. Not how do I fix myself, but is the self I'm trying to fix even real? In that humble question, the ego begins to loosen, and something deeper begins to breathe. The 3 poisons. Invisible architects of suffering. This journey is not about abandoning life's emotions. It's about understanding their true roots, so that what once controlled us can be seen clearly, compassionately, patiently. We continue onward, still asking, who is suffering? But today we begin to see not only who suffers, but what drives suffering from within. Beneath almost every emotional struggle we face, anxiety, jealousy, shame, resistance, craving, there lies something more hidden, more fundamental. The ancient teachings call them the 3 poisons: craving, lobha, aversion, dosa, and delusion, moha. They are not sins, not things to be ashamed of. They are simply the fuel that keeps the fire of suffering burning. And the most powerful thing about these 3 is, we almost never know they are there. Let's begin with craving. What is craving truly? It is that endless movement in the mind. I'll be okay when? When I've achieved more, when they approve of me, when I'm safe, when I'm healed, when I finally become something more than I am now. Craving is not just wanting. In fact, healthy wanting is natural, even beautiful. But craving is haunted. It grips. It obsesses. It says, without this, I am not whole. So the present moment becomes an obstacle, something to endure until we get there. In the modern world, craving wears the mask of ambition, optimization, productivity. But it's not about progress. It's a fear-driven exhaustion. And it hides in even the most evolved spiritual practices. We say, I must be more mindful. I have to become awakened. If I keep meditating, I will one day be free. But that voice too is craving. It does not rest, and it cannot bring peace. You will never be peaceful by running toward peace. Then comes aversion, suffering's second engine. This is resistance to the unpleasant, a rejection of life as it is. It arises as irritation, impatience, blame, judgment, quiet or explosive, active or internal. It says, this should not be happening. This is not how I want it to be. And just like craving, it builds a wall between you and what's here. Emotional repression, frustration in traffic, fury at a friend, even unspoken disappointment when life doesn't fulfill your idea of fairness. It all burns quietly as aversion. Here's the catch. Both craving and aversion feed each other. We crave what we lack. We resent what we don't get. And that cycle spirals endlessly unless seen clearly in real time. Now we meet the third seed, delusion. Perhaps the most dangerous because it is invisible until exposed. Delusion is not stupidity, it is misseeing, misunderstanding the nature of the world, of the self, of experience itself. It includes every mistaken belief we cling to unconsciously. I am somehow separate from life. If I control enough, I'll be safe. Other people are the cause of my pain. What I feel now is what I'll always feel. Can you hear how innocent it sounds? Yet these subtle perceptions are the scaffolding of much of human suffering. Delusion makes us grasp and resist and take every thought as a personal truth. And the tragedy is, delusion doesn't scream. It whispers. It just feels like truth. Now, what happens when you begin to recognize these three in yourself? You don't fight them. You don't suppress them. You simply humbly see them. This is liberation. The moment you name craving, not as sin, not as shame, but just, there is grasping in the mind right now. You've already broken its hypnotic pull. When you see anger, not as your identity, but simply, there is heat here, resistance here, something is pushing. Suddenly, you are not the anger. You are the awareness of it. And so with delusion, the moment it is brought into view, it weakens. Its power is in being hidden. Its unraveling begins in being seen. This is why mindfulness is not a technique. It is an act of love, of nonviolence, of attending to your own suffering with clarity instead of control. Don't try to stop your emotions. Just try to see who or what is driving them. Let every craving rise and when be met with compassion. Let every aversion burn and be met with stillness. Let every illusion speak and be met with quiet knowing. Because when you see these poisons clearly, not kill them, not hate them, but just see, something incredible happens. They begin to dissolve on their own, not by force, but by light. Observing the mind, the power of pure seeing. This journey is not about creating a better version of the mind. It is about knowing the mind, seeing it in action, and ending identification with it. Each step takes us away from dogma, away from escape, and gently toward clarity. What if you could experience your anger, your craving, your defensiveness, without becoming any of it? That's not a fantasy. It's a capacity every human being holds. The capacity to observe the mind without fusion. So far in this journey, we've uncovered the hidden architects of suffering, the three poisons, craving, aversion, and delusion, and the false self who carries their burdens. But how do we begin to loosen their grip? Not by force, and not by trying to control thinking, but by watching gently, curiously. There is something profoundly powerful about this. The moment you can see a thought as a thought, it's no longer your master. Let's say you feel anxiety. Normally, the mind fuses with it instantly. I'm anxious. I want to get rid of this. But now something shifts. You pause and inwardly recognize, this is what anxiety feels like. It's rising in the body. There's a tightening. There's a story forming. Immediately, spaciousness appears. The anxiety is still there, but so are you, the observer, the one who sees. This is the beginning of healing, not as fixing, but as non-identification. From the Buddhist lens, the mind has two aspects: the object, what is happening, and the awareness, the knowing of what is happening. Most people only live in the object. They become thoughts, they become moods, they become reactions. But when awareness becomes strong, when we observe instead of react, we begin to reclaim inner space. We begin to live not inside every emotion, but in relationship to it. And the miracle is, once you're in relationship with the mind, you are no longer its hostage. This isn't about being cold or detached. It is the opposite. It is intimacy without fear. It is knowing your inner world so well, you no longer fear what passes through it. Sometimes people think mindfulness means clearing the mind, but that's a misunderstanding. Mindfulness is not controlling the mind. It's becoming so present with the mind that its illusions begin to dissolve unguided. You don't push the pain away. You see where it clings. You don't silence the anger. You watch it rise, peak, and dissolve. You don't force yourself to be calm. You notice the storm and discover the stillness beneath it. This is what Buddhism calls vipassana, clear seeing, not mystical, not religious, just radical presence with what is, until what is no longer scares you, because now you are not it. You're the one who notices it. This is more than mindfulness as a technique. This is mindfulness as a way of being, as a return to your original clarity, before the me story, before the fix-it urge, before the labeling of wrong and right. You don't have to become a monk to practice this. You just need to be alive and courageously honest with your experience. Start simple. When a thought arises, name it gently, thinking. When fear tightens your chest, fear is arising. When judgment comes, judging, no shame, no suppression, just loving awareness. And little by little, you begin to discover the ground beneath all weather. You realize you may not be able to control your mind, but you can witness it. And in that witnessing, you are already free. A mind can observe its suffering. It can begin to see clearly what once consumed it. But even as clarity grows, something may still remain closed. A quiet wall, not of judgment, but of habit. Almost as if the heart is waiting to feel safe before it dares to open again. Because what happens after we start observing the mind? We may become wise, we may become more stable. But without compassion, something will always stay slightly cold, slightly separate, like a mountain that watches the storm from afar, but cannot touch the rain. Now comes the moment when understanding asks to be held by tenderness. Compassion is often misunderstood. It is not a sentiment, not pity, not softness for the sake of being kind. In the Buddhist path, compassion is a form of wisdom, the wisdom that sees suffering not as an enemy, but as something that longs to be seen, accepted, and transformed. Even in therapy, or in meditation, or in self-reflection, many find themselves asking, but how do I love myself? How do I move from just knowing to actually feeling warmth again? The answer, slowly and respectfully, is this. You stop trying to love, to fix, to repair, and you begin to witness what is hard in you with no agenda. Compassion is born not when you succeed at healing, but when you no longer hate the parts that haven't healed yet. There is an old wound in almost every human heart, the belief that I am unlovable until I change. This belief, silent, unquestioned, keeps us at war with ourselves, even on the most spiritual path. But tenderness begins where war ends. Compassion is simply this: a direct response to suffering without resistance. No philosophy needed, no new practice to master. Only breathing with whatever is painful in you, as if it were a frightened child needing no lecture. But your warmth. It's easy to offer kindness to others. But when it comes to ourselves, our tone turns sharp. Our forgiveness wears thin. We expect progress. And yet the inner world softens only when it's treated the way we might treat a quiet, hurt bird. Not with force, but quiet witnessing. Presence. Time. In practice, this may look like pausing when frustration rises and saying softly inside, this too is a moment worthy of care. It might sound like, I see you, pain. I accept that you're still here. I won't run from you today, not to indulge it, but to unseal the heart that has grown numb from self-hate. And as this heart begins to soften, we rediscover something ancient inside us. The capacity to love without needing a reason. The ability to turn toward one's own pain without shame or urgency. The space in which nothing needs to be changed immediately, because just by being seen, healing has already begun. Metta, or loving kindness in its purest form, has no target. It does not say, I love myself because. It says, even this belongs. Even the tension, even the regret, even the part of you that thinks you're failing at this very practice. When silence is laced with gentleness, the mind's war begins to lose its reason to fight. This is where Buddhism transcends reform. It becomes reconciliation, not between right and wrong, not between self and world, but between you and the parts of you that forgot they were allowed to exist without being perfect. No one else needs to offer you compassion for it to exist. You are the field in which it begins, and when it awakens in you, not as a concept, but as a living warmth, each emotion, each fear, becomes just another thing passing through. Not a threat, not an enemy, just one more guest. In a home that has finally unlocked its doors, the Eightfold Path. Rewiring the mind gently, the heart has softened. The mind is no longer hostile toward itself, but clarity needs direction. Peace to endure must have roots. This is where insight becomes structure. This is where freedom finds its footing. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is no promise of comfort, only a path. Not as a doctrine, but as a progressive unfolding of clear seeing, ethical living, skillful effort, and anchored presence. It's called the Noble Eightfold Path, and it's not a linear staircase. It is a circle of inner alignment, a system where each element nourishes the others. Whenever we suffer, we can almost always trace it back to something in this path going out of balance. The 8 factors are simple in language, yet endless in depth. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Each of these words begins with right, but not in the moralistic sense of wrong versus right. Right here means aligned with wisdom, skillful, appropriate, a path that leads away from suffering, not deeper into it. Let's walk gently through them. Right view. This is the root, the ability to see life, pain, pleasure, identity, impermanence, as they are, not as we fantasize or fear. Right view reveals that suffering is not a punishment, it's a signal, a call inward, a teacher, right intention. Now that you see clearly, how are you aiming your heart? Are you moving from kindness or ego, from fear or truth? Right intention means no longer acting from self-centered craving or harm, but from the intention to wake up and help others do the same. Right speech. Not just about being nice. Our words are extensions of our inner states. Right speech is honest, useful, kind, timely. It refuses gossip, aggression, manipulation, and through it, relationship becomes connection, not transaction. Right action. Every action becomes a vote. Will I contribute to suffering or lessen it? This is not about perfection, but about consistency, simplicity, integrity, right livelihood. How do you earn your living? Does it contradict the peace you wish to embody? Do you hurt others in the process of surviving? We cannot find inner peace if our way of life harms the world that surrounds us. Right effort. This is gentle persistence, not forcing, not striving. It is watering what's wholesome in you and ceasing to feed what is toxic, without frustration, without guilt, just courage and continuity. Right mindfulness. Your awareness is now awake. You see thoughts as thoughts, pain as pain. You track the breath, the body, the feeling, the arising and passing of all things. And in this deep intimacy with the present, you cease to be carried away by illusion. Right concentration. And now was stillness, the ability to gather your scattered energy and rest in the clear, unwavering space of your deepest self, not as escape, but as homecoming. Each of these is a doorway, but together they are the temple. Not a temple you go to visit, but the one you build within, brick by brick, intention by intention, breath by breath. Some people ask, isn't this overwhelming? 8 parts, so much to practice? But the truth is, each time you choose presence over impulse, kindness over reaction, clarity over delusion, you're already walking it. The Eightfold Path is not a map you memorize. It is the natural posture of the awakened heart. And each step you take is both the path and the destination. Sight into anatta, not self, not a scary void, not nihilism, but freedom from having to constantly become someone. You no longer need to define yourself. You don't need to declare progress. You don't need to finish the healing. Because there is no endpoint for what was never really a personal problem to begin with. The mind has moods, the body has sensations. They come, they pass, just like wind brushing through a window. But the one observing them? That's not a self in the usual sense. It's not a fixed identity. It's just knowing, pure, still, selfless. When we see thoughts as thoughts and not my thoughts, when sadness is not my sadness, but just the body's weather, healing dissolves into seeing. Effort becomes grace. You are no longer on a mission to feel better. You are simply here. Some people misinterpret this as apathy. It's the opposite. It's aliveness without clinging. Life becomes simpler, deeper. Joy becomes quieter, more spacious. Pain becomes honest, unresisted. And strangely, what we were chasing all along, peace, love, wholeness, starts to appear with no chase. Not because we finally caught it, but because we stopped believing we were chasing anything to begin with. This is not a destination, it's home. The home that never needed healing, only remembrance. Meditation, not a method, but a mirror. We are almost afraid to say the word sometimes, meditation, because it carries so many expectations. That we must be calm, that we must enter some holy state, that thoughts must stop, that we must feel peace or light or silence. And when those things don't come, or only visit briefly, we judge ourselves. I must be doing it wrong. I'm too busy to meditate. My mind is too wild for this. But here's the truth. Meditation is not what happens when the mind becomes still. Meditation is what happens when you stop expecting the mind to be anything other than what it is. It's not a performance, not an escape, not a reward. It's a mirror, one that shows you the exact condition of your inner world, moment by moment. And when you sit or walk or lie on your back with awareness, you begin to notice how the mind reaches, how it resists, how it comments, how it clings. There is no need to stop any of it. There is only the gentle invitation, see what is. And in that seeing, something soft begins to shift. This is no longer about changing your state of consciousness. It's about having the courage to be present with the state you're already in, without commentary. You're angry, sit with it. But don't be angry, just let it pulse. You're anxious. Watch how the breath becomes shallow, the neck tightens. Stay, but stay with kindness. You're tired, distracted, bored. Let that too be seen. The moment you cease to demand anything from your experience is the moment meditation begins. The Buddha spoke of 4 foundations of mindfulness. The body knowing the breath, postures, sensations, without clinging. The feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, without following. The mind, thoughts, moods, states, without becoming. The Dhammas, observing inner laws, how suffering arises, how it ceases. And all of this begins with just one thing, a willingness to be here, not one day, not 1 hour, but this moment, this breath, this thought that just passed, this itch, this pain, this noise outside. You don't need a cushion. You don't need incense. You don't need a mantra. You just need the silence inside you, willing to witness what moves across that silence. Meditation is not always peaceful, but it is always honest. And slowly, that honesty makes peace out of whatever arises. Not by controlling it, but by no longer fearing it. In time, thoughts lose their aggression. Emotions come and go like weather. And the self who must fix everything becomes a guest, not the homeowner. You no longer meditate to become calm. You meditate because you are already awake to what is happening. Zen says it best. Sit quietly doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows by itself. You are not here to achieve awareness. You are here to return to it over and over and over again. And one day you forget what you're trying to fix because you're simply listening with the whole of your being to life as it actually is. The end of the path, walking without leaving. You've listened, perhaps not once, but many times. You've traveled far, or so it may seem, from exploring suffering, ego, craving, to observing the mind, softening the heart, and practicing a path that leads from bondage to clarity. And now, standing quietly at what feels like the end, a doorway opens. Not a door to enlightenment, not to heaven or bliss or final knowledge, but to something far more ordinary, more immediate. This moment, this breath, this footfall, this washing of a dish, this being with someone. After the teachings, the realizations, the insights, and the tears, what is left? Just the living, the walking, the breathing, but no longer done in sleep. No longer carried by delusion. No longer grasping at life as a thing to be conquered. Some people imagine awakening as a climax, a final bell, a great experience. For most of us, it's simpler than that. It's the moment you stop waiting for your life to begin. It's the moment you stop searching for the path, because you realize you've been walking it all along. Every breath where you chose awareness. Every moment you said yes to seeing pain instead of running. Every act of kindness. Every drop of patience. That was the path. You didn't need to become someone. You just needed to stop becoming, to return. To sit down without running, to look without needing to find, to breathe without changing your breath, to meet life without trying to fix it. Some traditions call this peace, some call it awakening, some call it just being human. But whatever words you use, it is always here, and it always has been. The Buddha never offered salvation. He offered a mirror, a lamp, a gentle truth. I only show the way, you must walk it, and you have. Every time you simply noticed your mind without being buried by it, Every time you caught yourself rushing and paused, every time you let something go that didn't even need to be held in the first place. So let this be the closing thought. There is no grand finale. There is just now, and now, and now. No savior, no enemy, just the breath, just the seeing, just the gradual dawning that you are and have always been free. All that's left to do is walk, not to arrive, but to remember.